Welcome to the Growth Minded Accountant podcast, where our experts will share best practices on running your firm in the digital age. This podcast is brought to you by CountingWorks Pro. Let's get started.
Welcome back to another episode of the Growth Minded Accountant, where we talk about smarter ways to grow your firm, serve better clients, and actually enjoy this wild ride of entrepreneurship. My name is Reams. I am the founder and CEO of CountingWorks and our sister company, taxpos.com. And I've been working with independent tax and accounting firms for many decades, specifically in helping them stand out from the crowd, get better clients, have long-lasting clients, and more importantly, get more revenue from each client. So today's episode, we are going to talk about, and last week we talked about individuals, focusing on individuals and segmenting. And today we're going to talk about small and medium-sized businesses and what those segments look like, what are the most lucrative, and what services you might associate with each of these groups. So as usual, I am joined by Rebekah Barton. She's our Chief Visibility Officer here at CountingWorks Pro. If Rebekah, you could say hello before we get started.
Hey, everybody. Excited to talk about this topic today.
Yeah, and I think the reality is what technology is doing for us right now is enabling small firms, whether you're a solopreneur or a firm with $5 million in revenue, but it's enabling you without huge investments in people and marketing teams and human capital to use technology now to further focus and segment your marketing outreach, your offerings, your analysis for specific types of clients. So I think this can be very lucrative because you're not talking to many, you're talking specifically to people, and they're hearing pain points, benefits that actually resonate with them, and that's going to help them take action. And this also helps you build out more of that trust, that client relationship, and hopefully now take these clients from perhaps a few services or maybe an annual service and put them into something that is more of a package structure, recurring revenue. And obviously that's a huge win for you. So let's talk about this at the very starting level. What is segmenting and why do business owners specifically want more than just a tax preparer, for example? They're overwhelmed right now. They have regulations, they have uncertainty, they got tariffs, they got uncertainty in the tax code. Quite honestly, they're desperate for clarity, right? So they're looking for somebody that they can lean on as a partner, not just someone who they pay once a year to talk over and tell them, do I owe or not owe? And if it's an accounting client, maybe I'm just dealing with them in a year-end review versus more contacts, more check-ins throughout the year. So what I see is a lot of accountants, CPAs, EAs are still offering a la carte services and what I would call random check-ins. And this to me is not a business. This is not a process. This is not a system. So if you're only prepping their taxes or doing their books, you're leaving advisory fees. More importantly, the retention, how long someone stays with you will be shorter, and the referrals that they might generate as well. So we're going to go through kind of an idea of who are the modern small, medium-sized businesses, and we're actually going to give them names, and we're going to go through a little bit. But I started this by saying, why segment at all? And I'm going to do some stats and read them off. Some different vendors have done some client engagement surveys. Ignition did one. They said the average firm serving everyone earns 30 to 50% less per client than those focused on verticals. That's from their survey. I believe it could even be higher the way things have changed. Taking a client that's $800 to $6,000 a year or more is a significant deal, right? Another one by CPA.com, they did an advisory ready clients are now 6 times more profitable than basic tax only clients. Okay, so hopefully the first stat kind of shook you up a little bit. The second one is wow, 6 times more profitable. And then the reality is, and AICPA did a survey that says basically AI and automation are starting to commoditize compliance services. Okay. And if you've been listening to our podcast and listening to me speak, I believe that AI will do a lot of. So basically, if you can get a tax plan now in a few minutes from AI, that means almost everyone could do that, right? So what is your edge? What is going to separate you from these just tech stacks? Or it's basically leveling the playing field. So even people that may not have the same expertise can create something very quickly. They may not find issues or massage the tax plan, but the reality is they're able now to compete with you in areas they could not before. So your edge is going to be in your relationships, your niche relevance, and your year-round insight. And that's what we're going to talk about today in this specific topic side. So let's talk about a little bit. Here are some of the different types of business clients that I would suggest you focus on. And Rebekah, we're going to start off with the chaos operator. And if you could give some just general mindset of, and what I want to do is communicate. We're going to give people, categories. We're going to pigeonhole them, and this is a chaos operator. But I want our accounting professionals to start thinking about putting themselves in their mindset. And then therefore they can start figuring out, what do I offer that client? How do I service that client? How do I make them successful and organize them? So if you could start out, let's just start out with the chaos operator, kind of, what is their mindset? And then how would we then start communicating to that group?
Yes. So the chaos operator is going to be contractors, family-run businesses that have maybe done everything exactly the same way since grandpa started the business 50 or 60 years ago. Tradespeople who maybe are really, really good at electricity or plumbing or those types of things, but they know nothing about how to keep their books. They're good at what they do. They're not good at the financial end of it. And then a lot of times small shops as well. So think about like a local market or a local mom and pop shop that has just kind of receipts everywhere, manual paperwork everywhere. Chaos operators are going to be the people who don't have any systems in place. They're probably a little bit technology resistant. A lot of them are probably still doing things the way they always have, and they're very reactive. They're not proactively planning. They're only dealing with problems when the problem arises, not mitigating the problem before it happens. So what these people are really looking for is someone who can come in, clean up the mess that they currently have, get systems in place that they know how to use, that are easy to use, that fit into their day-to-day workflow, and then provide them with monthly strategy and reporting calls. Really handhold them, give them that support as they kind of get rolling with this new system. They may need training on technology, QuickBooks, for example. They may need training on how to actually utilize some of these new systems when they're dealing with customers, how to send electronic invoices instead of mailing invoices, those kinds of things. So you're really going to want to handhold these people. But one great thing about the chaos operator is that once they see how you can help them and they start to see how much more smoothly things can run with your advice, they're likely to be lifelong clients because they're going to really appreciate what you come in and do for them.
Yeah, and let's talk about some marketing angles and a content angle, whether this be via email, you're doing social media, your blog, vlogs, whatever. So, you just said the cleanup part. So they might be the procrastinator. They might have, might have images of papers stack up to the ceiling and surrounding them, and they feel the pressure. They know their disorganization is costing them profits. It's making it loosey-goosey. It's probably giving them stress at night. They're probably like, oh, did I make payroll this week, that kind of stuff. So I think what you do is you message around that, and then you can create your packaging, not an hourly rate. You say, hey, these are my 3 tiers that I offer. This is kind of my target audience, but define this package around their needs, which is maybe in that beginning cleanup, and then keeping it so they have processes in place. They're actually budgeting now, and you keep them on track. So you just don't do the cleanup and then say, okay, I wash my hands and I move out. So that is kind of the strategy I would go there. But Rebekah, explain a little bit. We're not going to get into a huge marketing 101 here, but how would you go about creating content that would resonate with this group, and maybe a landing page and a funnel or something that would take someone through a total, hey, I realize I got a problem. I'm actually going to do something about it. And then how do I get that person now to an intent to choose me, to hire me?
Yeah, so I think with this group, having some kind of a hook is really, really important because while they do recognize they have a problem, they're not people who are used to spending money on the cleanup component of things or on implementing systems. So they might be a little resistant at first to spending a lot of money until they see the results. With people like this, when I've worked with our clients, one thing we do often is have a special offer on the landing page. So we create a really nice landing page. Hey, are you overwhelmed by your bookkeeping? Do you need help? And we'll offer like 50% off your first month if you sign up through this page. Use that same verbiage on your social media ads, on wherever you're promoting this special offer, and you're going to probably see a much higher conversion rate, see people who are really interested. And then that's going to give you a chance during that first month of service to really show them what you can do. Then you can turn them around into paying clients throughout the year. They're going to become loyal clients because you're really going to have an opportunity to showcase your value during that special offer period. So that, I think, is probably the biggest tip for hooking these people, is to really market things in a way that gives them a reason to get in touch with you. Provide them with something of value. In this case, they get to keep more of their money.
Yeah, awesome. So let's go into another target audience, what I call the growing agency or an e-commerce brand. So think creatives, copywriters, designers, boutique marketers, Shopify sellers, Amazon resellers. So these companies are smaller. Sometimes they're, almost run out of their garages, but they actually have some pretty good revenue streams coming through. But cash flow, and even maybe pricing models are, maybe not as predictive, perhaps not as thought out. It's more like throw it against the wall and see what happens. So a lot of areas that you can come in and really assist them. What do they want? They want clarity on profit. If they're dealing with tariff uncertainty right now, that is something you can help with, right? They want confidence if they need to hire or add facilities or storage or fulfillment, whatever. What is the best way to do it? At what revenue growth level can I now add another body? Those kind of things. Obviously, strategic tax moves would be a big deal. So there's a bunch of ways as an advisory angle I could do. So let's do some margin analysis, and you can lead with that. So it's something that is like, hey, I realize I have no idea what my margins are. That's a great lead in. I can start there, and then I can get them into like a CFO light service tier. So again, they might not have these huge budgets, but there's still enough revenue coming through that if I could free them up, X hours per month, more importantly, if I could double, triple their profits, I mean, you're obviously more than paying for yourself. So maybe even doing some tax planning with this type of user as well. The next one, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I think too, with these people, a lot of them are already more tech savvy. A lot of them are working online. They're going to be very open to AI solutions, to tech solutions. So you can kind of showcase the modern aspects of your firm more than perhaps you can with the first group we talked about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we're going to go into a group that's similar to accounting firms, but this is going to be other professional service firms. A lot of them obviously are higher income. These are law firms, architecture firms, consultants, creative agencies. What would they look like as far as their core needs? And a lot of this would be tax planning and partner compensation strategies. Okay. And then even entity optimization. So, dealing with the estimated taxes, obviously dealing with the recurring bookkeeping, keeping things organizing, keeping systems in place. But what are the upsells here? I would do fractional CFO. I would do profitability reviews. I would do succession planning, specifically with a lot of older boomer clients. And this is similar to then if you went into medical type firms. And so, Rebekah, let's talk about this. If you are marketing to a lawyer versus a medical practice, why or how would I change my messaging? Even though they might have very similar actual service needs, I think talking to them in their language is really important. And let's talk about how we're helping our clients right now focus their narrative to each audience to make it so they can connect and actually feel like really valued. This firm specializes in me. They know what I need and why that makes winners versus losers kind of against the general firms.
For sure. So this is where niche marketing really comes into play. And we talk a lot about this on this podcast because it's something both Lee and I really, really believe in, and it works. So right now, what we're doing at Counting Works to help you, not only are we doing the landing pages that we already talked about, but we have playbooks coming out that are going to help you specifically market to people within different demographics, different industries. One thing about this type of clientele, more of the professional firm type of clientele, is that they are going to see through frivolous, fluffy marketing. They want real results, and they want people who really know how to help them. They're intelligent, they're busy, they work hard, and they want to see serious financial results. So one thing you can do here is utilize AI. Our Max system, for example, can help you craft content specific to the things they're facing. Even if medicine and legal firms, for example, are facing similar issues, the actual nitty gritty of what they're dealing with is different. They're dealing with different regulations. They're dealing with different sorts of tax deductions. For instance, a medical office might be able to deduct the purchase of equipment and scanning devices and that type of thing in the way that a law firm cannot. So you need to speak to specific pain points that these different groups have. Send out newsletters that contain news about specific tax issues that pertain to their industry. Send out emails that tell them exactly how you can help them. Make social media posts that are geared toward your exact demographic. And AI can kind of help you break down, okay, I want a month's worth of social media content geared toward virtual CFO services for attorneys. Boom. It will really help you. And then you can take those bits of content and transform them and use them on other platforms as well.
Yeah, and I think the talking in their language is also what's going to resonate. And a lot of these firms, they refer to other, some of them not necessarily competitors, they're friendly, they're colleagues, they refer each other, right? So if you become the known, I'll go to the next category. It's a little off of like dental practices, more like health and wellness. So I'll say med spas, gyms, chiropractors, right? So these are firms revenue range, $500,000 to $5 million. And as Rebekah said, equipment depreciation is important. Entity structure, comp planning is important. Expanding, often like gyms, you'll see them, CrossFit gyms, they'll open one shop and then they'll try to do a second and a third. And, I've seen people fail because of that. They don't plan accordingly. So there's a lot of ways to deal with those type of firms, and a lot of different strategies and packages that you can do. But more importantly, if I am now marketing to those med spas, you're going to be known as the med spa CPA, for example. We just had a client just launched, they do marijuana. They focus on it. It's called, I don't know the whole name, but they started with dope, and the whole name is really funny and clever. But 100%, they are targeting a specific area, and they're going to own that market, and it becomes very lucrative. And they become known as the expert in that space. So it really matters. So let's go. I just mentioned health and wellness practices. I would then go to real estate investors and agents. Some of them are very high revenue businesses. They have a lot of passive activity rules. They got 1031 exchanges. They got entity structuring, sometimes multiple entities. These clients can be very lucrative, specifically bigger ones, right? So strategic tax planning, exit readiness, how do you sell, asset protection, things like that. I think those are areas that you should, definitely look at. The other one is something that's kind of new, and this gets into NIL a little bit, but more importantly, like solopreneurs that make a lot of money. So this could be a YouTuber, an Instagram, an influencer, a podcaster, a course creator, authors. They make up to millions and millions of dollars. Some of these young college kids are making, serious bank, and they need to worry about taxes now. They have no real background here. So, what are their needs? Do they set up an entity or not? Sometimes their income is up and down. How do they deal with that? How do they protect their IP? How do they license that IP? How do they make money out of that? So there's a lot of different ways that you can go assist them with IP valuation, strategic budgeting, start helping them plan for retirement savings, right? So again, I'm just giving you different services that you can start packaging in more advisory side. And I think that's really important. So let's go now. One more example on the marketing end, Rebekah, and then we'll move on from kind of these categories that I'm talking about. What would you say? Hey, I'm going after, this whole world, and then there's a big lawsuit going on right now between the NCAA and some college athletes about being paid specifically from the colleges. I think it's up to like 22 million per college, and they'll break it down to football, basketball, revenue sports, but whatever. But between NIL and now really getting paid, you're opening up tens of thousands of athletes to more than that, right? There's a huge bucket of people here. But how would you go about positioning your firm as like the expert here? How would you start creating some content and a narrative. This is more narrative, not necessarily content creation, but like, what would be your angle for them? How would you make it hip that they choose you versus some, I'm going to call it traditional CPA firm that they feel is like not, speaking their language?
Yeah, so I think you need to meet them where they are. So this is kind of two buckets, right? You've got content creators who tend to fall into different age groups. There are many, many successful content creators, course creators, things like that, who are in their late 30s, early 40s, even older. So that is one bucket, these content creators who are making bank. But NIL specifically, these are going to be young people. They are college students. So there's kind of two routes you can go here. One, you can start meeting them where they are. TikTok, Instagram, do reels, really make these short, snappy, here's how I can help you, use hip language, talk about things they care about. You might even try hooks like if they want to buy, I don't know, a Lamborghini, use something like that, and then get into why that might not be the smartest investment for them. But right, you need a hook. People are so inundated with videos, kind of going this route of like, what do kids think about, and then pull them into your actual really good advice. You can also target their parents. A lot of these kids are going to be listening to parents, agents. So if you post content that is specifically geared at the parents, the agents, the people, the older adults who are involved in these NCAA athletes' lives, that's another way to kind of at least get your name in front of them through the other people who are helping them manage their appearances, their, marketing efforts, whatever the case may be. So there's kind of two ways you can go as far as becoming a niche person. You can also look at doing partnerships with colleges. And say, hey, I want to become the preferred tax and accounting professional for all of your student athletes who need assistance in this area. So that can also be a good way to go that is maybe a little bit more comfortable for some tax pros rather than getting on TikTok right out of the gate.
Yeah, go for the collectives and partner with them. You'll have to sponsor them. You'll have to do, some sort of buy-in for it, but that would be a very logical way. And what's nice about this, just like with any vertical, so to speak, is once you're in, you're in. So unless you blow it, it's just going to be a fresh new group every year of new people. And then you obviously can take athletes as they leave into their professional careers or whatever's next, whether that be, professional athletics or just a normal career. You've set them up to succeed. You've hopefully helped them save a lot of money, and they can be clients for life. So it makes a lot of sense. So let's talk a little bit about what services you should be offering these groups. Again, you could go use a tool like Max if you want to kind of brainstorm, Max AI, you can put in, hey, these are the type of clients I like working with. Can you identify some different groups and some categories that I can target, and then come up with a marketing plan and kind of a go-to-market plan on that? So we could be here all day on talking about different verticals, but I just wanted to give the high levels to make you start thinking, but definitely use a tool like AI to help you. So what are we trying to say here? We're saying move beyond tax prep and bookkeeping to what business owners are actually craving, okay? So what is that? That's clarity on what's working and what's not. Hopefully you have insight too. You work with all these different athletes, for example, you'll know, hey, these are the pitfalls, these are things. Confidence to make better business decisions. Obviously, if they trust you, that is a big deal. And consistency and communication deliverables. I think this is one of the biggest things I see in accounting firms, specifically when they get busy. At times, they're fully open. Here I am. This is why processes, packages, having systems in place to assist you in doing your job and delivering your job are so important. So what are some scalable services? Strategic tax planning packages. Maybe it's 3 times your tax prep rate as your starter, and then you could have some different higher tiers, monthly or quarterly advisory check-ins, obviously, predictive dashboards. So you're now able to build in from, let's say, their QuickBooks and data from their tax returns and some KPIs and other things that you actually start creating dashboards that they have access to that show real-time results of what's going on in their business. I think that's a big deal. Compensation, obviously, is a big thing. How do I minimize my taxes on my compensation? Specifically with so much uncertainty, you see what's going on in New York City right now with the SALT and the negotiations on what they can and cannot deduct, and then how many people have left New York City to go to Florida and other places, and what tax revenue went with that. I think a lot of that is, hey, let's talk about your compensation. How do we plan for that? And then what type of entities should you create to minimize your tax liability, right? So that's another great one. Exit and succession planning for mature firms, older boomers. That's a huge opportunity right now. I think that's going to be, quite honestly, you could stand up an entire accounting firm around that by itself. And then you could try to get, there's a whole bunch of advisory services that are very lucrative. If you're there at a sale process, that's when there's a lot of money to be spent. And I think that's an obvious place, right? So definitely think about that. There's the fractional CFO support, which we've kind of talked about, why it works. It makes you indispensable, not just seasonal. And they're actually, think about it. They think they're winning. That's like a discount. I don't have to hire a controller, for example, that costs me 150, 180,000 or whatever a year plus payroll costs. I can get that at $2,000 a month, $3,000 a month, and you're giving me advice that I would get from that $180,000, $200,000 a year person. I feel like I'm winning, right? So I think those are a bunch of deals. So let's go into now how you package this. And this is where it gets fun and also iterative. So you can make packages and test them via email, through even like a social media, whatever you want to do, and see what works. So instead of billing hourly, this is where we want you to start thinking flat fee packages tied to outcomes. Okay. So, I just gave a couple examples there. I'll just read it off. Essentials tier, compliance at a quarterly meeting, right? My growth tier, advisory, dashboard, and team support. And then exit ready tier, strategic planning, entity review, sale prep, high touch, okay? So no matter what, if you do this, your average client can jump from $800, $1,500 a year to $6,000, $20,000 or more, right? Without adding really any additional headcount. And why is this? You're able to use technology, AI tools, automation, and basically templates to do a lot of the heavy lifting. More importantly, the client feels like they're getting that CFO level service at a discount. Okay. And that's why it's so important. So, Rebekah, when you talk to our clients and they're putting together kind of the marketing around the pricing, I think transparency is a big deal when people make these decisions. It actually feels more comfortable to kind of self-select what package I think I should go into. But by posting it and showing it, at least it's a starting point. You can obviously negotiate off of it. But what is kind of the psychology behind the buying experience, both for the pro, who is not a huge salesy person, you're not expert sales reps, but also the end client who is bought into reading all your content, listen to your podcast, is ready to purchase. This makes it a lot easier. It takes the friction out of it. So kind of explain that a little bit.
Definitely. So this is where the psychology of marketing, which is one of my favorite topics, comes into play. So people want someone they can trust. And by having packages that clearly state this is how much you're going to pay every month, every quarter, this is exactly the package of services that you're going to get, the suite of services, if you will, that is going to immediately build trust with people. You don't have to sell yourself because the authenticity is already selling you. And particularly if you're putting out high value content, you're writing blog posts that are geared towards your niche, or sending out newsletters that are geared towards your niche, all of these things that we've kind of talked about, Lee, in this podcast and past podcasts, you've already built that trust and that authenticity. So it's really important for people to feel like they can trust you. Another thing here, and I talk about this a lot, is the name of the package. This is actually very important when it comes to the psychology of marketing. People love to feel like they're getting something exclusive. They love to feel like they're getting something that not everyone has access to. So giving your packages names like the Platinum package or things like that, or the exclusive access package or things of that nature, can really help sell them, because all of a sudden you're positioning those packages as an extremely high value rarity. And that's something that people, in particular high net worth clients, want. They want something that not everyone has. They want to feel like they're getting something special. So I think both authenticity and then on the little bit more true marketing end of things, the titles that you give these packages both play a big role in how likely individuals are to actually purchase them.
which leads into feeling special. It's all about the relationship layer. I mean, that's what we do here at CountingWorks Pro. That's why we keep talking about these strategies, because we know they work. And I'll just give you a couple thoughts, right? So I think the real competitive advantage isn't necessarily your tax knowledge. It's the way the clients experience your firm. So right now in a world where ChatGPT can start drafting tax strategies, clients are going to stay with you because they trust you. You're personalizing the experience and the recommendations. It's not just a bot just kicking stuff out. You have real world insight, right? That's a huge differentiator, right? So the best firms are going to proactively check in mid-year at least, right? Speak the language of the client's business. And that's why it's so important when you keep hearing people, not just us talking about niching, and whether you niche or a generalist, people want to speak in their language. So perhaps you're not a niche specialist, but even in the way you do your packaging, maybe you have a package for businesses that are in their startup phase. And that's a different package than someone who's in their growth stage, which is a different package versus a business that is near retirement age, right? So I just gave you 3 ways to differentiate packages, but still be a generalist for business versus a vertical where I'm going to wellness places, okay? The relationship layer does really well when you start personalizing all of these touch points. So that's why we're developing all of our playbooks. That's why we're personalizing all of our content through the power of AI. But we're able now to create campaigns around specific target audiences and send out almost one-to-one emails based on what we know about that client, what we know about if you tag them and segmented them properly. So this is what the relationship layer is all about. So when you combine this with smart segmentation of your client base, so we did a survey, 20% of our clients segment their lists. And that means at most basic, here's our individuals and here's our business clients, and maybe here's our nonprofits. They don't then go, these are our dual income people, and these are our, chaos businesses. They don't even go that far. But technology is going to make it easier for the technology to basically assign some of these segments. But just spend some time, look at your database as a team, and go in and segment them, tag them. So it's easy then, if you ever want to send a targeted message to that group, you just hit filter, tag we'll call them the chaos clients, the chaos businesses. They don't need to know. That makes sure that's never shown, right? But then you can easily send out a messaging, a narrative that comes straight to their talking points, their concerns. So it's the engine of long-term growth and retention. I think this is kind of the future. That's what we're doing here at CountingWorks Pro. I think it means a big deal for you. So what does it mean for pricing power? If you segment, I think it means you get predictable needs. So each segment, this is what they need. Okay, I have identified that. Now I'm going to systemize my platform, my processes around them. That's automatically, instead of helter-skelter, you're running around trying to deal with clients or researching every client as unique, you're going to have higher margins. So what is the result? You get productized advisory packaging. You get automated, ready playbooks like what we're doing at CountingWorks Pro. You're going to have fewer service headaches in delivery. You're going to know this stuff inside and out, okay? You're going to have higher lifetime values per client. I think these are big deals. So segment for growth, systemize things to scale, and build a relationship layer that no AI or tax robot can replace. That is it. If people like you, they trust you, no matter what happens on the tech stack, you're going to retain them. And you're actually probably going to deliver better financial results to these clients because you're going to be using and interpreting what this technology is spitting out. So you're going to be able to analyze data at scale like you've never been able to do before. So I think this is huge. I think it's the future, and I hope you guys are starting to kind of resonate how this works. So my last segment here before we close down this podcast is what to automate and what to personalize. So what we're doing is we're spending a lot of time right now on, okay, the client onboarding side. How do I send out a personal proposal to that wellness center who wants virtual CFO services? And I can now use a tool like Max, our CountingWorks AI tool, to write that proposal specific to that person. It includes a Stripe link. They can pay me now. And then I can create a sequence of events where once the proposal is received, that payment's received, kick out the engagement letter. And guess what? That engagement letter could be customized to that client, speaking their language, right? And then once that's received, kick out that intake form to save you 10, 15 minutes. More importantly, feed your AI tools the basics and the kind of the demographics about that client. So then when you're ready to service them, AI can start kicking out some tax plans, some proactive, perhaps financial planning. What are the KPIs that are important? And you have a baseline to start doing your services much faster, right? You can also use AI tools to do research about a specific new client. So you could have almost your own prep notes. I think this is huge. So if I have a new client that's maybe not necessarily in a niche, I'm doing a generalist, but I can do a little research and AI could spit out immediately. These are the questions you should ask. Think how much time that's going to save you. It's going to organize you, right? Obviously, you can use AI to create tax plans. You can analyze tax returns. What are missing? What are the suggestions for this based on this return? What should this client be doing? AI can do that in seconds today. Very accurate with tools like Max. Creating these dashboards, taking data from multiple sources. There's a lot of software that's doing that. We offer summaries with voice memo recaps about tax returns or maybe a financial statement. These are things that are going to save you time, right? What you should personalize, though, now is your human in the loop interpretation of this data. You're going in and editing that tax plan. You're adding some insights and some color to it that AI just doesn't see, right? You're adding your strategy to this. You're adding options. Perhaps, yeah, this is option A, but hey, this is another one. This is your guidance. And that's really the magic, right? AI does all the grunt work. You deliver the human insight. Those are going to be the firms that are most successful here in the next 5, 10 years. I'm betting on it. Obviously, we're betting our technology and what we're doing at CounterWorks Pro on this. So firms that are listening to this advice, understanding, segmenting, it's not that hard. It just takes a little work and a little strategy. I think it's more strategy because once you set up systems like ours, it kind of runs. But I hope that's been valuable. Again, this is a backup. If you did not see our individual program last week, just go back to CounterWorks Pro under our podcast or our YouTube channel, and you'll find the latest podcast recording. So again, I hope you're getting a lot of value here. We see a lot of people listening and or watching. We'd love for you to share our podcast, spread the news to other professionals, not your competitors, obviously, but get the news out there. And we'll continue to educate, to share our knowledge. We have thousands of accounting firms, CPAs, EAs that we work with. So we see very quickly what works, what doesn't. A takeaway from this, those that do focus are also going to see more, I'm going to call it thought leadership, awareness through the AI search tool. So, we have some clients now that are doing, we have one that focuses on breweries. They launched a brand new website. They were showing up for best CPAs in Illinois for breweries within 48 hours of launching in the AI recommended tools, right? So this stuff really matters today. So if you do segment and you do the right way of content marketing, you're really going to open yourself up to a lot more leads and a lot more opportunities. So again, thank you very much. Visit countyworkspro.com if you have any questions. Follow me on LinkedIn. I answer questions directly. So send them my way, and hopefully we'll see you guys in the future weeks. Thank you very much.